So my dear friends, the time has come. We just got the Bad Batch Season 2 premiere, the two-parter Spoils of War and Ruins of War. I'm going to break them down and then I'll give you my full review. In terms of first impressions though, right out the gate, it was just so great to have some new animated Star Wars and to see the return of our favourite batch. The 2 episodes packed in a lot of action for a premiere, and I'm just going to dive straight into it. Let's break this down. We begin episode 1 Spoils of War with the same scene from the start of the trailer. The Batch is on a mission for Sid at some unknown beach, and while they got the cargo, they're being chased by giant crabs. These crabs are similar ones to what we saw in the High Republic. But the biggest theme of the sequence, which is recurring in both episodes, is the development of Omega. While Hunter, Echo and Wrecker get the cargo, Omega and Tech remain on the Marauder, and Tech is teaching her how to identify various Imperial ships. This scene was shown to those lucky few in attendance at Star Wars Celebration back in May, and when it's time for the pickup, Omega jumps into action and uses her know-how, her agility and her energy bow to fend off some of those crabs. When the mission is done later on the Marauder, her education continues, with Hunter advising her to stay on the ship next time and not to put herself in danger. This opening scene jumps right into the action of the season, and to show us the kinds of missions the Bad Batch have been taking for Sid, all the while being space dads to Omega, while all of their development continues. She's teaching them as much as they teach her, something we'll come on to a little bit later. But now comes the most important part of the premiere. The Batch returns to Sid's parlour on Ord Mantell, where they're still laying low. When they return, they're greeted by AZ. It was so great to see him alive and well after Camino, that big scare in the season 1 finale. We also see Bolo and Ketch, the Ithorian and Weequay from season 1, and they're still living the chill life, enjoying a good game of Dedrick and indulging in an occasional drink. When our heroes return, they're not just met with Sid, but also Wanda Sykes' character, Fija Noah. We're told that she's a pirate, and I suspect she could be our link to Hondo if he shows up later in the season. She makes a few remarks about the individual members of Clone Force 99, taking a particular flirtatious interest in Tech, but her reason for being there is some kind of big heist that she wants a cut of. Genoa leaves the room, and Hunter asks Sid to explain what she meant. Here comes the context of the entirety of season 2. As the big stakes are introduced, Sid warns the Batch that their days as mercenaries are numbered, because eventually the Empire will come toward Mantell, so she advises them to take on a dangerous mission that could make them enough money that they can disappear and be free, and no longer rely on her for work. Now this mission is a huge callback to the Clone Wars series, because they've got to go to Count Dooku's palace on Serenno. Given that he died months ago at the hands of Anakin, his vast fortune remains, and the best part is that the Batch doesn't need to steal too much of it to buy their freedom, just a little bit. Given the immense value of just a few of Count Dooku's jewels, just a small amount is worth a lot. The only problem is the Empire's already bombarded Serenno, just as they did Camino, and now they're coming for the cargo, so the Batch have their work cut out for them. At first, Hunter doesn't want to take on the mission, but when the stakes are explained and he's outvoted by the other members, he follows suit. Just before they leave though, Omega's education continues, with Hunter quizzing her on the various ships. This comes in handy later. Now on their way to Serenno, Echo has a very important conversation with Hunter that sets the precedence for larger conflicts later on. Jennifer Corbett even teased this. Echo says that Omega is the reason they're living like this, on the run, and even though he loves her, she's his sister, he wants to rescue other clones. He says there are others out there. He brings up the same thing with Tech later on. Omega overhears, and she later confronts Echo about it. But first things first, when we arrive on Serenno, the Batch devises a plan. The idea is that all of them but Hunter will get inside one of the containers and steal what they can, while Hunter stands guard and will create a diversion if necessary. And remember earlier when I said that Omega is teaching them as much as they're teaching her? A great example of this is when Hunter mentions 40 troopers, and Wrecker impulsively wants to go in. Omega reminds him of stealth and patience. I thought this was a nice touch. It shows character growth and development in the 6 months in-universe since the last time we saw them. Interestingly, we learn that many of the Imperial troopers are clones, so conscripted recruits are still making their way into the ranks, and they've not entirely taken over just yet. One of the captains is a certain clone called Wilco, and we'll come on to him a bit later because he's foreshadowed Cody in a very important way. More on this in a bit. Of course, for the Bad Batch, things don't go to plan, and despite Hunter's explosive diversion, the stormtroopers are onto our heroes and quickly outnumber them. Wrecker is able to bring one cargo crate back to Hunter, but the container that the rest of the members are in takes off with an Imperial freighter. Hunter and Wrecker try to help, but they're soon being fired at, leading the two men to find refuge inside of Dooku's palace. A shootout ensues, and back on the freighter, Tech tries to get them to an escape pod so they can get out of there before it jumps to hyperspace. This is where Omega's education comes in handy, because she's able to identify the ship as a Class 4 freighter, which means they have containers that are equipped with re-entry thrusters. These will soften the landing if they get inside one and release it, and so they do, and their bumpy escape begins. This brings us to the end of episode 1. Ruins of War episode 2 begins with the re-entry thrusters being activated as Tech, Echo and Omega are jerked around while the container falls. There is no comfort in a softer landing because on a cliff's edge, a 150kg container fractures Tech's femur. He's injured for the rest of the episode, and there are a couple of close calls. They try to find cover, but Omega wants to go back for the chest. Keep this in mind for later. Meanwhile, in the rubble of Serenno, Wrecker and Hunter try to stay under the radar as they try to get back to the Marauder. Due to overrides of comms, they go completely radio free to not draw any attention. While in the wilderness of Serenno, Tech, Echo and Omega come across a local man called Romar. He takes them back to his home, and we learn that he was a Serenian who was opposed to Dooku and the Separatists. In this way, the Bad Batch shares a common theme with Andor, heritage of a planet before the war. Similar to Ferrex, Serenno was Romar's home before the Clone Wars started, and he tries to hold on to relics of their culture, something Tech said he never even considered, because clones are very war-minded, and Tech in particular thinks very strategically. Speaking of a more human side, Romar gives Omega an optical illusion toy. She finds it hard to comprehend the innocence of it. She's been training so hard with her brothers that she's completely detached from what it's like to be a kid. It's a cute addition to the show, and reminds us of the simple things in life during times of war and hardship. Wrecker and Hunter find old Separatist tanks, and one has a dead clanker on it. We'll see more of these on Geonosis in later episodes. Omega dangerously goes back for the chest, and Echo goes after her. It turns out she did it because of what Echo said earlier. She wants to buy her brother's freedom so that she's no longer the reason they're on the run. Tech also follows, but due to his fracture, he can only go so quickly. He is later saved by Romar. Now this is where the very brief arc of Captain Wilco begins. After Wrecker and Hunter kicks some ass and blast the troopers, Wilco comes over to one of his injured men. There's a look in his eyes as if he's starting to question the order. He's lost so many men because of them, because of the Imperial regime. In the end, Wrecker and Hunter save the day. They rescue Omega, Tech and Echo, and aboard the Marauder, Echo reassures Omega that saving her was the right thing to do, and there are no regrets. And now comes the crazy ending. Admiral Rampart comes to Serenno to investigate what happened, and finds out Clone Force 99 are still alive. They didn't die on Kamino like he thought. Realizing the consequences if Tarkin finds out, he demands Wilco fabricate a false report, omitting details of the Bad Batch. Now Rampart not knowing is huge for another reason. Crosshair didn't tell the Empire the Bad Batch got away. What is he playing at? What does this mean? Could this be the beginning of a redemption arc? Let's find out. This for Wilco is the final straw, and he realizes how corrupt the Empire is, so he refuses to do as he's told. And so what does Rampart do? He kills him in broad daylight. Shit just got real. This is a huge moment foreshadowing Cody and other clones who are waking up and realizing how bad the Empire is. So as I said yesterday, the premiere contextualizes what's going to happen later on. I think there's a clone rebellion coming. I've got to tell you guys, I love the action of these episodes, but it's the ending that got me hooked. I'm giving this premiere a collective 9 out of 10, just based on what it's setting up. Episode 3 next Wednesday is called The Solitary Clone, and I've got a feeling it's going to be about Crosshair, who didn't feature in this premiere at all. We're going to catch up with him and what he's been up to, but the season started with a bang, and I'm generally very pleased. Some really fun themes, character growth, and I really love that Echo is going to have a lot of the spotlight this season. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Star Wars is back, my dear friends. What would you rate this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want more videos not found here on YouTube, while also supporting the channel and getting your name at the end of my videos, then click the link down there in the description. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always.